fantasy chaos. The 2025 Fantasy Major League Rugby season has kicked off with week one in the books. And boy, let me tell you, it started off with some chaotic action that caused fantasy managers to go scrambling to check their fantasy lineups. We get you all caught up with everything that went down in week one, give you some waiver wire options and what is an early bye-mageddon coming up, and look ahead to what's to come in week two. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 142 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR with you each and every single week. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and come on, boys. Come on. We have finally the start of Major League Rugby. We opened up with a bang, a thriller of a game, closed out with the scorcher. Boys, fantasy MLR is back. How are you guys feeling after what was, I would say, a pretty fun weekend there?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was kind of weird watching on ESPN Plus, but hey, it feels like watching on ESPN Plus. Vandy, obviously, you don't get it. You're still watching on the Rugby Network, but
right.
Watching on the ESPN Plus in the US, it felt like I was watching like a sport. It felt like I was watching a sport that was cherished in America for whatever reason. Like it didn't feel like I was on some, native app.
Do we get the same announcers?
We do.
It was the same announcer, same broadcast feed, same everything. It did seem like things were less likely to be filmed on a potato, which was good.
Yeah.
And it looked like the scoreboard in some cases was usually correct. Announcing still sucked for 90% of the games. But it was awesome. It was great. 3 out of 5 games were unreal.
Yep.
Nail biters. 2 out of the 5 were kind of like, hey, love to see some tries being scored. So I enjoyed it. Sorry, Vanny, didn't mean to take so much time there, but I had to rant a little bit about that.
No, you said it perfectly. I mean, yeah, some absolute banger games. Lucky enough to actually catch the OG DC one, which we're going to touch on. Well, I caught a bunch of them, but that one especially, man, what a nail biter.
Yeah. Matt, you're in full season form already talking about the announcers. I'm just surprised you didn't mention the water breaks and complaining about that, because obviously those are still evident.
We're over it. We're over it now.
Every time I see a hydration break, I instantly go, Maddie's ticked off.
The fact that they need a hydration break when it is under 10 degrees Celsius outside.
You know when you need the hydration break? Miami, NOLA.
Yeah.
I mean, Houston.
LA, not even.
San Diego.
That's why they have halftime. That's why the medics come on literally all the time.
Either way, we know why the water breaks are there. We know why it's there. Money. But it's okay. We'll like Maddie said.
Hey, do you know what? Right, sorry. I got to say one more thing. We got big boy commercials. All right, none of this.
It is true.
We got some beard guys. All right, I get it. We get some of that beard guys. That guy's kind of weird. But no more, Arctic cooler commercials. No. We got the big boy commercials now. We got the ESPN Plus commercials. Yeah, I don't know, Vanny, what you're seeing over there. You maybe
see a lot of Will Hooley. I see a lot of Will Hooley.
There you go. Well, hey, I know Will Hooley.
He's the best announcer out of all.
Maybe
by the way,
not yet a friend of the show, but I know he does. Occasionally. We do have to get him on. Interacts with our content, which is cool to see. I know they just had Matt McCarthy of MLR wrap up on their show, The Rugby Rundown, which is cool. But I'm sure you're seeing a whole lot of Will Hooley there, Vandy. But yeah, it did seem like big boy commercials. But hey, in the build up to that, again, we got a jam-packed show in this one. Of course, we're in full season mode now. We got everything that you can expect from our in-season Fantasy Ruckers show format. We got our quick tap recap. Maddie, I saw it in person. He was taking notes, watching the matches over and over and over again. So we got a full breakdown of all of everything that went down this past weekend, including our first week TFR Team of the Week honorees, which we're always excited to dish out. We've talked about how those awards are just up there with, we're talking about, Hall of Fame, gold jacket in the
The
NFL.
Purple Heart.
The yeah, sure. Right up
Act of
there.
Valor.
Yeah, exactly. TFR Team of the Week to dish out here in week 1. We'll break down all the games. We, of course, got your waiver wire breakdown, which we'll get into in terms of everything you need to know, especially with a early bye-mageddon that is coming up in week 2 already. I think last year we had our first bye-mageddon in week maybe 10 or 7 maybe. We're starting off hot here right in week 2 where we got 3 teams off bye. So we're going to give you some names to look out for in terms of guys that you can scoop up here for this upcoming week. We'll go down through all the matches that are coming up this weekend in our Rucking rundown and then talk a little bit about betting in rugby in our TFR betting challenge. Vandy is looking pretty, laying down money like the big money maker that he is. He's been on a hot streak. We'll get into that all here. But before we get into it, guys, I want to mention that the chaos began right away, right? Like we locked down our drafts last week, right? Everyone was super excited. Matt, you mentioned it in our show last week about this is the peak, right? This is the epitome of what you're going to feel when it comes to the optimism of your fantasy MLR team, right? It happens in any fantasy sport where after the draft, for the most part, you're feeling pretty good, right? You got the guys that you wanted, you got the team build that you more or less wanted. And then lineups started to come out and the panic was starting to set in for our league managers. And we posted on our socials. So if you aren't already, at the Fantasy Ruckers, handles up above, down below in the description if you're listening on the pod, up above if you're watching on the YouTube video, we mentioned that just 2 or 3 days after drafts wrapped up, New England announces their lineup. What? Potros? Where the heck is Jason Potros? Harrison Boyle is starting. Our consensus, we did a breakdown of the ADPs last episode, Maddie, and we talked about how the consensus guy, the guy that people were feeling most confident in, was Jason Potros, and he wasn't not even coming off the bench, not even in the match day 23. So people start panicking there, and then LARFC announces their lineup. Where the heck is Semi Kunatani? He's not there. He's not there either. Vandy had the first overall pick in our listener league, and he was sitting there trying to scramble to figure out what the heck is going on and how are we going to solve this. So, of course, waiver wire was a big one this coming week. But, I mean, talk about starting the chaos early. I will say, give kudos to the teams for bringing out the MLR lineups early so people had time to make those adjustments as they needed to. But, I mean, yeah, fantasy MLR is in full swing, full force. You got buys starting off early. You got lineups getting crazy off the bat. I mean, this is why we love fantasy Major League Rugby. It truly is like nothing else. Did you guys get hit with the chaos as early as, I mean, Vandy already touched on it. I had Jason Potro, so I got hit with it. Maddie, did you get hit with some of the chaos here?
Yeah. A few positions, front row, fly half, had Lobster. Had Big Joe Tufetti, was hoping he'd get to start, but hey, it is what it is. We deal, we get dubs, we conquer.
Yeah, well, I had Semi, Frank Lahore, Reichert Hatting, and I might as well have had Tim Sweel. Might as well.
Yeah,
it would have been better.
Did you guys miss it? Did you guys miss this chaos and this angst that is
it's funny. I was thinking about it, and I was like, I feel like no matter what at this point, I've played so much fantasy in my life that there's always a point in the year where at some moment, a moment of weakness hits and you go, why did I do this to myself, man? Why do I do this to myself every year? And I did not expect that to happen, setting my lineup for week 1.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But hey, this is what we live for. This is why you listen to the Fantasy Rucker Show. We're gonna help you guys get through it.
Well,
all right.
Hey, this is why you also keep up with the things that we talk about on this show.
It's true.
All right. Yes, we got waiver wires, and we're going to give you some heaters today. All right. We're going to give you some heaters for week 2.
Right.
But like Ryan said, keep up with our socials. We are putting out starts of the week based on the lineups that are coming out live in time on the weekend before the first kickoff. And that might influence some last minute decisions, and you're going to want to be there for it, or else somebody else is going to beat you. The guy you're facing is going to pick it up, and he's going to beat you with it.
Hey, the Fantasy Ruckers team, we're 1-0, baby. This is where the information is going. So we started off hot, gave Great American Rugby, Lance Kavanaugh, a nice little welcome to the league, gave him a nice little taken care of, right? Gave him a little beat down.
Fawcett first.
Move. Well, to be fair, the first round pick would Fawcett more than Semi Kunatani picking first in the first week. So it's looking right. Anyways, TFR team looking good. Again, to Matthew's point, we'll help you get through this season and make sure that you're successful in winning matchups. The way you're going to do that is if you're following at the Fantasy Ruckers. I mentioned it. Handles up above if you're watching on the YouTube video, down below in the description. If you're listening on the pod, like, subscribe, comment, interact with us, ask questions, all that good stuff here on the YouTube channel. We do love to see it. We've been growing heading into the season. Love to see that support. Our Discord has been popping off as well. Of course, if you're a league member, you're already in our Discord. But hey, if you just are a fan of Major League Rugby and want to get in on the chatter with some pretty passionate fans, they've been talking nonstop. They've been talking about Canadian and U.S. eligibility, some drama that's happening in there, all the good stuff. You go in there and check out the Discord again. Link down below there, and then check out the fantasyruckers.com. Revamped, looks good, has a bunch of new numbers on there. We'll talk a little bit about it in the league update that's coming up in just a moment. But the fantasyruckers.com is chugging along, the official platform for fantasy MLR with the Fantasy Ruckers. All right, you ready to get into this show, boys?
Let's do it.
News dump.
All right, we start off this episode 142 with our TFR news dump. Not much to honestly catch up on. We did have a team of the week announced by Major League Rugby, which is obviously not necessarily news because that's going to happen each and every week for the rest of the season. Of course, what does that team of the week mean when you got the TFR team of the week, which we'll get into here in just a little bit with the quick tap recap that, according to Matthew, is even more prestigious than the Purple Heart. Obviously, no questions asked there. But the one thing I do want to mention, Matt, unless you had some news as well after this, is we love to talk about the crossover when it does happen between football and rugby, because obviously that's where our fantasy passions began with fantasy football. It's where Vandy's had really dabbled in the fantasy sports world. I remember the early days in the college days, Vandy, when we introduced you to this wonderful thing that is fantasy sports, and you've loved it ever since. Your boy, though, Vandy. Your boy Vandy, though, he was on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Obviously a big name in Welsh rugby. Luis Rees-Zammit is moving on from the good old KC Chiefs and moving down to Florida.
Probably could have needed
to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, probably. Maybe could have used Luis Rees-Zammit. Maybe he wouldn't have dropped the ball like DeAndre Hopkins there, Vandy? But either way, Luis Rees-Zammit is no longer available or an option for your Kansas City Chiefs. He is now a Jaguar.
Yeah, because the 90-day offseason roster means so much. We'll see. Apparently, he said he had no.
Where the heck did you get that from?
Apparently, he said
I got so many toy guns down here.
Absolutely no option to go back to rugby. It looks like football is going to be his passion and drive moving forward. Good to see he's back with the Jaguars. I believe he was there at some point. I did have some news, Ryan. It was announced today. In a bit of American rugby news, it was announced today that the All Blacks will be playing Ireland on November 1st, 2025, as part of the Autumn Test Series in 2025. They'll be playing them at Soldier Field.
Ooh,
there we go.
So that's awesome. That's going to definitely be sellout, but the tickets go on sale Friday the 22nd, I believe. I thought I saw that somewhere. I don't even know if the 22nd is a Friday. I just said that. But yeah, that's cool. Rugby, kind of big names coming to America. Going to see top, hopefully, they'll be the top in the world by then. Ireland still, and then New Zealand maybe second or first. So we'll see. It'll be kind of a top three matchup there coming to the Americas. A little bit of a preview of what the World Cup might look like.
A little bit of a TFR road trip to Chicago.
Yeah, maybe.
Get the boys all together to maybe do that.
Yeah, we should. And just for the people, just FYI, this isn't the first time they do this like every year, it feels like. But yeah, All Blacks, Ireland, going to be a hell of a match.
Dude, that should actually.
Yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be cool.
November
All right.
1st.
Dude, we got two road trips coming up. MLR final.
Yep. Which is where this year?
I was just gonna.
They haven't announced it. They'll announce like 2 weeks before.
Yeah, last minute travel plans.
Ireland versus All Blacks in Chicago Soldier Field.
All right, there you go. We got our travel
Bear
plans
down.
for the Fantasy Ruckers show all set up for this year. Itinerary set. All right. Yeah. Again, like I said, outside of those two pieces of news, a quiet week, which is what we expect here in the full swing of the Major League Rugby season. Let's get right into my favorite segment of the show, a little bit
It's
of an
not anymore.
update for the people.
You don't want an update. You don't want to update the people. Because you stink in
true.
this game.
Hear ye, hear ye, man.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yi with the Fantasy Ruckers Leagues update. You're right, Maddie. I really should not be excited for this segment this week because now that we are in the full swing of the Fantasy MLR season, of course, this is where we bring up the beloved weekly challenge. First of all, I would like to say kudos and thank you to everyone who has signed up for the weekly challenge. I believe we have nearly 20 people participating, which is fun to see. And we're going to continue to grow that each and every week to get people the chance to dabble in the world of fantasy MLR, a little bit of a toned down version of our season long game. I'm really just delaying the inevitable here because I don't want to talk about it. Let's first talk about the winner of this past week of our week 1 weekly challenge. That is Stephen Lowen, our very own community moderator, slow and steady. He comes through with the weekly challenge of having a lineup that included basically Matthias Jensen and Axel Muller and some other guys, Dorian Jones, Malembe Mpofu, and Seth Smith. But I mean, hitting on Axel Muller, hitting on Matthias Jensen in the weekly challenge. I mean, come on, what crystal ball is Stephen Lowen looking at that he knew that those two players were the ones that were going to pop off? I have to give him credit. They're not even Houston guys. I know he's a Houston Sabercats fan, and they're not even Houston guys.
You don't want Houston guys anymore.
That's true.
Seth Smith is, but
to move on though, Matt Yee. Matt, you finished in third with a pretty solid lineup. You hit on Pat O'Toole. He was one of your starts of the week.
He was, and if you listened to me, you probably would have won.
You probably would have won if you slotted in Pat O'Toole there this week. He was available, and we'll talk about that more here coming up in our waiver wire segment, but he was available in a lot of leagues. Vandy, moving down the list, you finished 11th.
Yeah, and look at this. If I don't play Alec McDonald, I literally move up 5 spots.
So
if I would have just not played a front row, I would have moved up to 7.
So to put it into perspective, Maddie had 44.5 fantasy points. The winner, Stephen Lowen, 61 fantasy points. Vandy in 11th place was at what, 30.9.
But I got
Alec McDonald. Alec McDonald has minus 7.7, like you mentioned, Vandy. I was watching the game, right? And we'll get into it more, but literally in the first 5 minutes when Alec McDonald was shown that red card, I was like, oh God. Vandy,
dude, I'm up against Jason Robertson. So I was like, I literally went. It was like 3rd minute, misses the conversion on the Axel Muller. I'm like, hell yeah. And then red card. I'm like, gotta be joking me, man.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's not like even he was one of your marquee guys. He was like your $1 just filler position.
Nothing.
Like literally would have been better off to go with less than that. We'll just quickly say it. I finished in 17th. We'll move on out of 18. It's okay. To 18,
finish what?
17th. I finished 17th.
You know, I would have got toasted for that.
Out of 18. Yeah.
Out of how many?
I got toasted.
But I'll be the bigger man.
No, I deserve it. Nope. I deserve it. I even set up a fantasy Ruckers lineup that ended up finishing 9th. That is representative of all 3 of us. I should have just gave that lineup to me, and I would have been better. But I gave the fantasy Ruckers a better lineup than my personal one that has my name stamped on it.
Buddy.
Really, no one came through for me. A lineup of Ben Sugars, Ben Houston, Tim Sweel, Isaac Titamake, and
spend too much time down there. You're gonna get to know Michelangelo pretty well.
Yeah, no kidding. But don't worry though. I finished off as the top competitor last year, so expect a comeback to be coming here soon. So we're gonna bounce back here. I only have an already 40-point disadvantage to Stephen Lowen, who finished first.
You know what I just realized too? So, Jonah Moe got a yellow. So yes. I lost like 12 points off of cards on my weekly line.
Yeah, you would have been right up there. You would have been right up there with
the refs were a little card happy.
Dude, I would have been like 4th.
Yeah, it's true. Just a couple other things that I want to mention here. Awesome to see the fantasy MLR chatter here in our Discord channel. I know it was popping off, people talking during the games about the stuff going on, and also talking about a lot of things in the build-up with lineups coming out and things like that. Let's keep it going. Love to see it. And again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, if you aren't in our Discord and want to find that community that you can kind of just shoot the crap with, definitely do that here with our Discord channel. Yeah, there maybe is a little bit of judgment that happens in our Discord community, a little bit of trash talk, passive aggressiveness, of course. And then I do want to mention too, if you haven't noticed already, some mid-season updates on the fantasyruckers.com. AKP Alistair Kirschpool, the oddball gentleman, our website guru, is in full season form. We're just less than 1 week into it, and he's already added some additional features on our website. If you go to our player page, you can now sort by different stats on there, which is really cool to see. That should be added to the waiver wire page soon, so that you can do further research. But yeah, it's really cool to see. You can now sort by meters gained, sort by tackles, everything, and you can sort that all through to see kind of who are those categorical leaders, who's available in your leagues that are those categorical leaders. Really, really cool to see. So love to have those additions. Thank you to Alistair Kirschpool as always. He was obviously slamming away this past week to get everything resolved and situated, and we couldn't be more thankful and appreciative of all his hard work. One of obviously the most essential TFR team members here. With the Fantasy Ruckers. All right, boys, let's there's no more time to
get
waste.
Into the week.
Let's get right into the past weekend.
Quick Tap Recap.
All right, it is time for our TFR Quick Tap Recap, where we go over all the matches from the past week, and that is an exciting week one that kicked off on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern time between the Miami Sharks and Old Glory DC. I mean, to just lay out the summary of this game, Old Glory DC coming out, playing solid.
That's all you got to say. Brain farts.
It was some brain farts. But Old Glory DC coming out quick, getting up to the early lead. At this point, I was like, all right, Miami. I think it's going to be a long afternoon or late evening for you guys. But then all of a sudden, the Miami Sharks, after what was a fumbled Damian Hoyland kick and then some little after whistle play that resulted in a penalty that gave them good field position in the lineout, they capitalized, and Miami was right back in it and ended up taking a pretty big time lead. And then for all of you who obviously watched this match, you saw what happened in the final dwindling seconds of this game, where was it Santiago Videla that bobbled it and ended up basically giving it to Axel Muller to score the game-winning try as the time expired to set up Jason Robertson to kick the game-winning kick. Jason Robertson with the desperation kick cross field to land in the hands of Axel Muller to win it 31-29. So
that was, I mean, 2 yellow cards by, I think it was Tom.
That's true.
And Manuel Ardeo. Both those guys getting yellows in the last 10 minutes, like back-to-back yellows. And then Robertson pops off for a try, has a nice little boot, awkward bounce, but Axel Muller jumps on it. And
Matt, I know you looked at this one deeply. The one thing that I'll say is that I get it, and I talked with Alistair, our in-house Old Glory DC fan, about how really I think there were a lot of opportunities that Old Glory DC had that maybe resulted in what the result maybe should have been in terms of Old Glory DC winning this game. Miami didn't necessarily look great out there, but Miami had it. Like Miami, they had the ball, and for some reason decided to kick it away with, I believe, 30 seconds left to kick it away, giving the opportunity for Old Glory DC to even be in the position to have a shot at doing a desperation kick up by 2 men. Like, you literally just needed to crash the ball maybe a few more times.
Well, didn't they kick it out after the 80th minute and it got blocked?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no. It was like a couple things. Like he box kicked it, it got blocked, they picked it up, they played on, something else happened, and then like the guy, Old Glory DC kicked it in, and I forget who it was, but basically like it was Elias and Videla basically looked at the ball, was like, oh, I don't need to chase this down. Yeah. And then Old Glory DC just put it down. Yeah, it was one of the silliest ending to a game ever. Like that's the type of things where you wish Kubeli was on. but Damian Morley was on and he just kind of muffed it. Like, it is what it is. Some of that game management stuff will haunt you as a 9 and a 10. In this case, it's going to haunt them both. Yeah, I mean, Ryan, to your point, I think Miami was closer than maybe Alistair or yourself are saying. To me, it really came down to the set piece for them. They messed it up in the set piece in some crucial moments. They could have won this game. Let's forget the brain fart. They could have won this game if they just nailed their set piece in the red zone, and they would have done it. They had this game. I actually thought Miami looked fairly decent. Kubeli looked a lot better this year than he did last year, all year last year. Kubia is going to be an absolute weapon. He is going to be, and I'm putting it now, he's going to be like a Dan Creel for Miami. That's just the way that he plays and the way that he is.
Very interesting.
But yeah, that's what I think.
What were your thoughts, Maddie, on Miami's scrum? The Miami scrum looked like it struggled from the get-go. Like I noticed that right off the bat. Like they got pushed back, and I wouldn't particularly say that necessarily Old Glory DC's scrum, at least historically speaking, knowing also that they have a large portion of their guys returning, has been like a Houston level type set piece, but it didn't necessarily look that great from Miami's side of things. It looked like it fell apart pretty easy, which was surprising because they have some pretty big names when it comes to guys in that front pack, which again, to your point, is what they really ended up not taking advantage of or being able to capitalize in those moments in the red zone.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest. I looked a lot of the line out rather than the scrum. I mean, they're trying to take scrums out of the game. Apparently there's the same amount of scrums per game this year, but yeah, I was looking a bit more on the lineup. I didn't really focus too much on the scrum. The one thing I will say though, maybe switching over to Old Glory, right, is that I think this Old Glory DC backline is going to be sneaky good. Like
I agree.
Sneaky one of the best in the league. Damian Hoyland and the way that they use him on the outside is something else. It makes no sense. Like the fact of his ability and his link with Stephen Hughes as well as Jason Robertson to simply just step outside of the defender and give Axel Muller so much space to run. It's silly. It's just going to get them so much success, and Axel Muller is going to reap the benefits all year.
You think that maybe Damian Hoyland, he's a guy that we really didn't talk about much heading into this. Do you think
to be fair, I didn't know he was on the team or not.
Do you think he maybe went a little bit undrafted? His average draft pick was maybe start of the 5th round.
Yeah, I think he's going to be
started the middle 6th round, I should say.
One of the better 15s in the league.
I agree.
He's going to get a lot of meters gained. I don't think he's going to score much, but just simply with the way that the backline looked yesterday, I think it looks a lot better than
that's a backline too. Like honestly, I think Jason Emery is a solid player, and he's been a solid player for this league for a while. But I think once you have the center combination too of a Nick Grigg and Stephen Hughes, I think that might look pretty solid as well. And pairing that with the distribution of Jason Robertson, you talk about the center, like a solid center room, like having Emery, Hughes, and Grigg, like I'm very excited for that. But I agree with you, Matt. I think this back line is going to be a lot better than maybe what we expected heading into the season. And you mentioned the guy. I mean, already a performance of the year candidate, Axel Muller, with 3 tries in that match, 32.9 fantasy points. Talk about a way to just start off with a bang, scoring off early, then scoring off towards the tail end, 141 meters gained. He's our back 3 player of the week, team of the week honoree, and also our player of the week as a whole as well. Add on 11 tackles to that. I mean, I think you already said it all, Maddie, but Axel Muller is going to reap the rewards of what that back line could extend to. Jason Robertson, our fly half of the week, is 16.3 points. Again, a guy that was drafted as definitely not one of the top tier fly halves, but it really looks like that Old Glory DC doesn't have any other options when it comes to that. So it'll be Jason Robertson on the field all the time. 80 minutes played, 64 meters gained, a try, 8 tackles as well, along with 3 conversion kicks. I think Jason Robertson is going to be pretty consistent when it comes to that, just because of his reliability each and every week. I don't think, barring injury, you're going to have any concerns maybe from that you may have with, let's say, New England, where for some reason Jason Putras now is out of the lineup and you don't know where he went with that. There literally is no other option there in Old Glory DC. And then lastly here from the Miami side of things, really just a crapshoot when it came to the second row position this week for the most part. But Mauro Rebisoni of the Miami Sharks scoring 2 tries this past weekend. Really just, I mean, nothing spectacular. Again,
1 meter gained. Yeah, Andy could have scored those suckers.
Yeah, it's true. One was a pick. One was a pick from the back of the ruck at a meter, and then one was a quick pass, I believe, from Kubia to
Kubeli, Ryan. Kubeli is the 9. Kubia is the center.
You're right. I need to get that straight. Racist. But you know what's funny? I saw it on or heard it on the broadcast. They're calling him Kubisha.
Yes. I'm assuming that's correct.
Okay, Kubisha. Either way, okay.
Kubeli, I did say one that I did not agree with, but I don't have the
Kubeli found Rebisoni for 13.3 points, scoring 2 tries in that one. So again, Old Glory DC coming out on top here, 31-29 in a nail biter of this first match of the MLR season. Any final notes on this one? I think this was. And to kind of wrap it up in a bow, I think this was our messiest match of the weekend. Would you agree? At least from both sides kind of being not necessarily crazy impressive.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was a pretty messy game overall. I think room for improvement for both teams. Either way, what you might argue is
slightly messier.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. But at least I guess from both sides, because that's it. We'll get into it. But we'll move on to the next matchup here. NOLA Gold beating Anthem Rugby Carolina 35-14 was the follow-up match. This one a couple hours later. I thought that Anthem looked pretty solid in the opening handful of minutes, especially when they scored that try that was called back. I'm like, you know what? This might actually be a game that might be competitive, and Anthem actually might look a lot better than what they did last year. The try gets called back, and it goes downhill from there. Yeah. NOLA just pumped it on them. The 14 points that Anthem got was really just garbage. 14 points ended up throwing off there. Was never really competitive outside of when they scored that game time try really early on in the match. But I mean, very impressed with NOLA. They're moving the ball quick. They look good doing it. Xavier Mignot shows up in his first MLR match, scores the opening try for NOLA. And Anthem Rugby Carolina seems to be in a similar spot to what they were last year in terms of what people think of them. They may have improved players. It may take some time to click with them. But at least from a result standpoint, they opened the season in the same boat that they were in last year. Thoughts on this one, guys?
Watching this one kind of felt like watching the Super Bowl. It just, that Xavier, I'm going to say Mignot.
Yeah, Mignot.
Yeah. French is your second.
Yeah, bring that French Canadian in there.
That's right. He looks unbelievable, by the way. He's
a large lad, eh, man?
Big.
He looks, because they would show Ed Fidow, and everyone knows what Ed Fidow looks like. But then they'd show him, I'm like, damn, man.
I kept thinking he was a lock.
Yeah. He's massive. But it was just like, they got both their tries and kind of, I don't want to call it garbage time, but, when you're up, I think they might have been up 30, 35 even before Anthony got a try. So, I mean, it was pretty one way. It was, a dominating effort.
NOLA were awful in that second half, too.
Well, they just kept kicking the ball down.
Yeah.
Like, every time they got it, they just kicked the ball. Oh, that's what you're supposed to do, but their lineouts look good. Like,
yeah, that is true. Their set piece did look good. Yeah. No, I agree, Vandy. It was a lot of not much things that I could say about NOLA just because they're playing the Anthem, but a few things on the NOLA side, like Tutamaki maybe didn't represent in the fantasy side with, I think, 5.1 fantasy points or something like that. But that guy is a beast. Like, watching that guy play and not looking and being like, some of the plays that he's making, some of the simply just the footwork in the contact in the contact zone is just ridiculous. He's going to be really good this year, I think. And his center pairing partner, JP Duplessis, I mean, I haven't seen him kind of do well in a while here. 8.3 points, not high for a JP Duplessis standard, but you feel good that you feel this little sense that he's almost back, maybe.
They all look good back there, man. NOLA,
Yeah, they do.
I know it's against Anthem, so you don't want to give him
but
too.
whatever.
Hey.
He's still got to look good. Pat O'Toole, I thought, was the best I've ever seen him play in a NOLA Gold jersey.
He looked unbelievable.
And it wasn't just the tries at the set piece. Like, it wasn't just the 2 tries. It was
they
like,
love calling out
he almost
Luke
had
Campbell.
He almost had a hat trick, eh? Yeah, they love calling out. He does
every-
look more fit this year.
Dude, every time they could shout out Luke Campbell, they did.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's on the NOLA side. But like Carolina, I don't know, man. Like, their set piece still stinks. They're not good enough to make as many mistakes as they did. And the worst part about it is that they've actually downgraded at 2 of the most important positions as a team, and that's 9 and 10. They're missing a quality 9 and 10. I think their center combo is actually really good.
I do too.
I think their back 3 is a weak point, but it's okay. Like, you got Mitch Wilson back there, but their back 3 is most definitely a weak point. But they just need, I think Laubs are coming back. I think Carl Keen's okay, and we'll get to when we talk in the waiver wire. But I think they just need a 10. I didn't like the way that Laine Latu played. I didn't think that he did well enough.
This is what's going to be the interesting. This is going to be the interesting thing, right? Because we know that the Anthem are the U.S. developmental side, right? Like, this is the team that is going to be.
Nobody develops losing, though.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that. 100%. It's just it feels like they're threading this needle between giving opportunity to guys that are domestic and have that US eligibility versus maybe putting out the best lineup out there. I don't know what Cliven Laubster's availability is right now. He wasn't in the match day 23, right? I don't think so. But he is their best 10, right? We saw what he did last year. He's not US eligible, right? Laine Latu is, right? I believe Laine Latu, is US eligible. It'll be interesting to see how Anthem kind of progresses towards that. Because again, I think at the end of the day, yes, developing is great. And to Maddie's point and to Vandy's point, like, you develop the best when you're winning matches. Anthem have literally yet to do that ever in their history. I guess one season, one match into this thing. Eventually you're going to have to maybe pay that price of, hey, you know what? Like, we're going to just have to put the best lineup out there. There are going to be guys on that are best 23 or best 15 that we put out there that are US eligible and are going to make an impact. Some of these guys might just need to take a step back on especially bigger games when you're kind of going through this.
Or even let your kind of big dogs go in, eat, set the tone of the game, and then you get the young blood in to kind of finish it up too.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And one thing that people just don't, like, last thing before we kind of move on, but one thing that people don't really talk about is that you need experience in close matchups. You need experience in pressure situations, and being down by 30, being down by 40 constantly, and going with, hey, we're just going to quick tap every time. That's not experiencing pressure situations. You're experiencing no pressure because you've got nothing to lose because you're already dead.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, it's tough, but we'll see. I think a 9 and 10 away, preferably a 10 like Cliven Laubster in there. I think this team can do well.
Yeah. The piece, I think, to wrap it up, the pieces are there. The pieces are definitely there. I think on paper, on the roster, that this team is better than what they were last year. I'm still confident this team gets at least one win this season.
How the heck didn't you book them bets it at 3?
Well, I bets them at 3. I'm still like,
what the heck are you saying? At least one win.
What I'm saying is that there might be. I think the optimism has been hit hard with a lot of people with this Anthem team after that one.
It's like you just bet on like a team to win, and now you're saying, "Hey,
no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not.
I hope they don't lose."
No, am I worried that I booked a bet at 3 wins? 100%. But I think we need to temper expectations.
Sure, this guy Vandy. Sure, this guy.
No.
This guy says, I think they'll get
3 wins.
Book them bets. I think they'll get a good amount of wins. I was like, what's a good amount? He said 3. And I was like,
you said the over under 2.5. I'll take the under.
Okay. Do you want to go head to head on that?
Yeah.
I'll take
do it. Vanny's taking the under like a weapon.
All right, fine.
Like
I'll go. Okay, 2.5's the line. We'll set it ourselves. All right. I'll go above 2.5. You go below. All right. I'm writing it down right now.
That's over under, you clown. Okay.
Either way, let's dish it out. Let's dish it out. Our two team of the week honorees in this one, of course, when you're scoring 35 points, two of them being off of set piece tries, you're gonna have both a set piece and a front row player that's gonna show up for this one. Pat O'Toole, Maddie's start of the week, racked up 15.2 fantasy points this week. He had 2 tries, 45 meters gained in the 60 minutes that he played. Again, largely benefiting off of the dominance of that set piece that NOLA was having, which then translated to the NOLA Gold having 5 points as a defensive set piece. As of right now, before we move on to the next game here, Maddie, do you believe that we are still in that same boat where it's start your guys against Anthem as of right now?
Yep. Until further notice, it is a set piece bonanza against the Anthem.
Set piece bonanza. I like it. All right, let's move on to the second last matchup of Saturday. In what was probably, I would say, probably the most exciting back and forth matchup of the weekend between the Houston Sabercats and the Chicago Hounds. The Chicago Hounds coming out of this one narrowly, 25-22, taking that lead towards the tail end of that match, and then Houston scoring a try there late, putting it within the 3 points there, having the chance to kick the conversion, missing that, and Chicago ends up kind of holding out here and taking this one to beat what was the number 1 team, regular season team in 2024 on the opening week. Yeah, I guess after 1 week of play, not maybe just ahead of the Anthem. But I think I was quite pleased with how Chicago played. I think there's a lot of optimism when it comes to the Chicago team and this new look Chicago team. And Houston, interesting to see kind of how they played. Overall thoughts on this one, boys?
Yeah, I mean, you can't sleep on the fact of how many cards Chicago had. All right, like that makes this even more impressive in my mind. They scrummed well against a really strong, historically strong Houston set piece. They defended well. I thought they're good. They're gonna have a tough go next week. Their back three really got banged up. I think both Mark O'Keefe and Noah Brown. Noah Brown's likely going to get suspended with the red card. But on the Houston side, I just think defensively, they weren't the same Houston team that we've seen before. And their back line literally stinked. It literally stunk this game. I don't know. It's the same deal. Like they get the ball 3 times and they do something with it once. And it's just awful to watch. The one nice thing is that I think Andre Warner's still the top 9 in the league with the way that he played.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I hope Houston find a way to play more versatile rugby.
Obviously, AJ Alatimu not in the lineup. Davy Kutzer starting at 10. Yeah. Is this team better with Kutzer at 10 or Alatimu at 10 and Kutzer at 15?
Well, definitely Kutzer at 15 instead of Drew Wild.
Yeah.
Like you get Alatimu at 10, Kutzer at 15. I think that's better than Drew Wild at 15, Kutzer at 10.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like you have to put in basically Max Schumacher at 15 because he got subbed in at like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're splitting 40-40, but like the back three on that team got worse once he came in as well. Like to Vandy's point, like you need a game changer back there.
Well, and like Dom Aquino was looking good too. It's just, he can only do so much. I thought one interesting thing they showed, it was like territory percentage, and they had Chicago dominating at 60%.
Yeah.
So they spent over 60% of the game basically in there.
And that's Houston's style,
and
right?
That's
like
Houston's style is to drown you in your territory and then just punch it in.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. From a fantasy perspective, not necessarily the most exciting one. Our highest scorer was McLean Jones at 11.2 fantasy points. So that just about kind of
line, though.
That kind of just sums up kind of how this went fantasy wise. No team of the week honorees in this match.
Wow.
Dylan Fawcett looked good. Obviously, if the Chicago set piece can continue to roll like that, Dylan Fawcett should look pretty all right. 9.2 fantasy points for him. Not as many meters gained as you'd like to see. 8 tackles, took advantage of the set piece. We'll see how he kind of encapsulates there. But yeah, I think there'll be a lot of left to be kind of figured out with both of these teams in terms of how we progress forward here.
I will say 2 guys I like Devoto.
I like start with them. Good, man.
And then Seth Smith, I think he is genuinely vying to be the backup hooker and a genuine guy that could be in lineups this year for fantasy.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Ollie Devoto, 7.7 fantasy points, but 60 meters gained
Yeah.
in there.
He
So
got the ball a lot. He was a
yeah,
big part of their offense. Like if you don't have all, yeah, we'll talk about it in waivers, but
yeah,
yeah,
we
Devoto's
shall
a
see.
guy.
All right, moving on now to the RFC Los Angeles New England Free Jacks game. This one was a highly anticipated one. Obviously, the defending champions taking on the team that was probably making the most waves this offseason. And New England ends up coming out on top 24-17. This one was pretty exciting too. I enjoyed this one. This was like really, really solid rugby, at least in my opinion. Like it looked pretty good to me. New England, I guess the questions going into it, they still look stout from their end. I mean, they are just tackle monsters. You look at the tackle numbers in this game, like guys like Jed Melvin reaching up to what was it? Like it's a ridiculous number of tackles
27,
up
but
there.
I don't know. I got to bring up,
Joe
hold on.
Johnston got like 28. Sam Kerr
Yeah.
got like 26.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to give myself flowers. Sorry, boys. But there was a guy in the preseason rankings who literally said that this Sam Kerr second row is just going to
It's
be a
true.
motor on the in tackling
You did say
for
that?
this New England Free Jacks team. And I mean, 26 tackles in one game.
Might have
Yeah.
drafted him too, bud.
Yeah. Oh, I know you did. I knew it. I looked around and I was like, oh, of course I told that guy
That's
to
right.
draft him.
Ed Bertranu too, man. He looked
Yeah.
great in his first game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think I really am optimistic about both of these teams. In terms of New England, I think it's still the New England of what they're going to be doing. They looked good. LA, obviously getting the loss, a tough one, but they still looked solid, I would say, in my opinion. And I think these are going to be two fun teams to watch throughout this season. Again, this was like when you take the Old Glory DC and Miami game and then you mirror it with this game, like the quality
Yeah.
of play, at least in my opinion, from watching New England and LA was it felt like a really, really quality professional game in terms of a standard that MLR is trying to reach. And I was quite pleased with what I saw in this LA New England game.
Quality players make quality play, make quality game.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what?
Yeah.
I was honestly pretty surprised to see New England come out with the win on this one. I'm gonna have the
Yeah.
hot take. They were missing Patros, obviously LA's missing Semi, but they showed the possession was 62% in LA's favor, 61.5 territory percentage with 553 carrying meters.
Yeah.
And
LA should have won.
288. Now that shows how good they are. And like Matt was saying, they've played the tight games. They've won. They got great veteran presidentship. I mean, that's how they come out with these wins. But by no means, if you're an LA fan, do you look down on this game? Honestly, it sucks to say. You see it in hockey a lot, but I always call it a dominating loss. You were the
Yeah.
better team and you lost the game.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like, yes, they had a bunch of tackles, but I think that's to Vandy's
LA.
point of like,
Mhm.
they didn't have the ball that much. New England Free Jacks had a bunch of tackles. LA just, they had the ball a lot. So New England Free Jacks was forced to make tackles. I don't even think New England Free Jacks played that great defensively of a game. Like it wasn't the same New England Free Jacks that we've seen in the past. It wasn't the tight line speed. There were gaps there.
Yeah.
You could see that LA had not just the want, but also the opportunities to kind of make a lot of offloads and look for those offloads as well. So it was interesting. I agree, Vandy. I think LA, like barring a few mistakes, barring a few cards, I think they got a card.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a card every game, but so
There
did
was.
New England
It
Free
was,
Jacks.
yeah.
There was for sure. Multiple.
But like, yeah, barring a few mistakes, LA should have won. But I thought they looked good. Like they're missing a bunch of guys
Yeah, I
up
thought they
there.
did
It's
too.
kind of weird. I still don't understand their lineup. That one doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Again,
So- Yeah.
we'll see how these two teams fare.
A couple guys, right, that I just want to to kind of start it off. One favorite guy in LA was Matthias Jensen. I thought he was
Center
talk
team
about
of
it.
the week honoree, 15.5 fantasy points.
unreal. Oh yeah, I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be starting in that 13 position a lot. Not too impacted by Billy Meeks. He looked good. He was a big part of that offense. It was awesome to see. And then New England Free Jacks. I mean, I got to shout out my boy Jed Melvin. The guy gets 11.5 fantasy points, 25 tackles, 55 meters gained, and a try, and gets a red card on it.
Yes.
Still ends up with 11.5 fantasy points. So what a weapon.
He would have been the second highest fantasy point scorer this week, just below Axel Muller if he had not gotten that red card. He would have been electric.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean Vandy touched on a few guys. The only guy, what was it? Ed Houston?
Ben Houston.
Ben Houston. Ed Timpson, Ben Houston.
Mhm.
Ben Houston was everywhere. He
Yeah.
was absolutely everywhere on the field. It was crazy watching him play.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily translate in fantasy
No.
points. He was my start of the week, and obviously
Your starts of
in
the
my
week were no
weekly
bueno.
challenge. No, they weren't too bad. They weren't too
I
bad.
was just looking back at mine. I was on a heater. I was on a heater there for that one.
But yeah, Ben Houston, I do like that. If he continues, I think the eight position on this LA team is going to be very, very valuable.
Where the heck
Whether
is
that's semi,
Kunatani?
yeah, we got. Where in the world is Kunatani?
Sammy.
We got to find him.
Where is he, Vandy?
I don't know,
But
but when you find him, tell him I miss him.
yeah. What I will mention though, and Vanny mentioned him earlier, how much he loves him. Might be Vanny's favorite player now, but Gonzalo Bertrano.
Oh,
I mean, how electric is this guy?
that's a 9,
13.1 fantasy points as a 9 again. For those of you who are brand new to fantasy MLR, again, the scrum half position is one that does not necessarily have a high points threshold. 13.1 is really, really good for a 9. I mean, having him facilitate that offense.
Wow.
It looks really, really good, and it fits right into, I think, what LA wants to do. And the plus thing on top of that is that you can see that he's looking to attack, right? Like you notice in his play that he's trying to find those seams and those opportunities to use his skill as a marquee rugby player, and from his experience, obviously with the Pumas and things like that, like. Gonzalo's I'm confident with our rankings, Maddie, where we had him, where we have him as the number 1 scrum half.
Well,
and
it's
I
only
think
the
he'll
first
fix that.
game, Ryan. It's only the first game.
I get
Plenty of
that.
time for them to disappoint.
get
but
that.
No,
I
I get what Ryan's
I
saying.
agree. Bertrano does look sick, and
Oh, but from the
Bertrano
outside
is a
looking
guy.
in, you can see, like for me, I'm realizing how much a 9 facilitates the game, and you can really see the good ones.
Yeah.
Let me say that every time that there's going to be a penalty for LA inside the 5 or at the 5-meter line, yeah, this guy's going to score.
Yeah.
He's going to quick tap and score.
Again,
That's just what he's going to do.
To Maddie's point, it is like overreaction time right now, where
That's
it's 1
sports
weekend.
media.
Exactly, and that's what we do. Either way, pumped up about Gonzalo Bertrano. Anything else before we move on to the last game of the weekend?
No, I think we got to.
All right,
Shout
last
out
game.
Angel Love seeing
Oh,
you
hell
there.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice little dish off the tri-assist.
You were
we got that
stolen.
weekend.
I wasn't able to
It was
draft
good.
you. You were
He looks
stolen.
like at least a 5
At least
out
a
of 10.
5.
Like like looks wise.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Otherwise,
that's pretty
he was
par. That's pretty par.
No, at least he could be anywhere between a 5 and a 15.
You're
Ooh.
basically saying,
You got
15.
a wild ranking system, but I'm
Yeah,
down
it's
for
crazy. Again, Gonzalo
Out of 10
Bertrano,
too.
just to quickly mention, Scrum Half Team of the Week honoree there. So
Let's
Matthias
go.
Matthias Jensen, Gonzalo Bertrano from the RFCLA New England Free Jacks game. All right, last game of the weekend, the only one on Sunday, was at 5 p.m. Eastern time. The San Diego Legion taking on the Seattle Seawolves, and what we thought was going to be an exciting one that was going to go toe-to-toe in a Western Conference battle that has a whole lot of history. And
Seattle got pumped.
San Diego decided, you know what? We're going to just go. And to Maddie's point, just pumped Seattle. Obviously, Seattle's showing signs of life in the second half and trying to at least not get necessarily embarrassed. But damn, that first 30 minutes by San Diego. I mean, come on. That if you're a San Diego fan, man, I am excited for what is to come this season.
Yeah, that was offensively, I love seeing Judd back. First of all, the offense running through Judd is again completely a game changer, and you can tell immediately.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that just killed Seattle was basically they did it twice, I think, on a couple of tries, but the ball straight from 9, cutting out all of the forwards and going straight kind of into that 15-meter channel on the blind side, it worked like a charm. And just it showed to me, one, Seattle just wasn't defensively, they just weren't there. They just weren't focused. They can be better for sure. But the fact that San Diego has guys in their team that can, 1, exploit the opportunity. Well, 1, find the opportunity, 2, exploit it, and then 3, do something with it. Yeah, no, that's really encouraging to see from a San Diego side. The last thing I'll say is just when you see the man kiss with fire and the man with the long, luscious blonde locks in the back row of that San Diego pack, woof, You better be scared.
Say his name.
You better be scared because
Say
Brad
his
Wilkin
name.
and Christian Poidevin are coming to eat you for lunch, breakfast, dinner, dessert, everything. Everything.
Yeah, no, it's so dynamic from that point. I mean, touching on some of those guys, the back three of the San Diego team between Ryan James,
Grayson at 15 is such a
Thomas
good
Alwake,
spot for him.
yes, Ethan Grayson at 15.
All they're missing, Ryan, sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
No.
All San Diego's missing is a hard running center. That's it. All they need is a 12 that's a hard running inside line guy, and that back line is going to be deadly.
You don't like T and Lutz?
I think they need somebody even harder runner than
beefy. They need a beefy guy.
They need a Lasike.
They need a Paul Lasike.
Yeah, we ain't giving them up.
And it's funny because they had that. I mean, after seeing that game, right, and seeing them.
Hey, Mikey Taylor was at the game.
No,
that guy looks the same.
No, they need to call it
super fit. And
they need to call it Ma Nanu. They need to be like, hey, buddy, let's run it back one more time. We just need you at 12 just to do some occasional inside lines there to set up our boys on the outside. We'll cap off your touches by 5, and you'll be good to go, and you'll enjoy an MLR shield at the end of the year. Yep. Again, overreaction, but San Diego did look very, very good from that standpoint. Yeah, Seattle first week, again, I'm not gonna say, oh, Seattle's just terrible. They did look older out there. I think they have a lot to figure out from that standpoint. Yeah. I'm not liking this team as much with Rodney Iona at the 10th position.
Should have started.
I agree.
They didn't have Riekert.
They didn't have Riekert in the lineup as well. So I think there's potential here for Seattle. I wouldn't be necessarily panicking
first game
as a
of the
Seahawks fan.
Yeah. So
40 to 26 victory for San Diego. Our team of the week, Henri in this one. Back row, Maddie mentioned it. Christian Poidevin with 12.7 points as the best back row player.
Tackles.
19 tackles, pretty incredible. Again, and then
he sits on the wing too.
Stellar performances. Ryan James, again, if it wasn't for the excellent performance by Axel Muller, I mean, he had a performance to remember with 19.7 points for him. Maddie mentioned Jed Holloway, Awake. I mean, the list goes on and on in terms of guys. Nice. On the Seattle side of things, I mean, Jesse McHale kind of. Yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. But 2 tries for him, obviously, as they try to surmount a comeback here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that was your matches here.
Last thing, right? I just have to say, San Diego's jersey looked like Seattle, and Seattle's jersey.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I kept getting confused. I kept getting really
true.
confused, and I get tripped up, and I thought, dang, Seattle looks good. And I was like, wait, that's San Diego. Anyways, that was the last thing, but
it was true. Well, touching on jerseys though, what were your guys' thoughts on how teams looked? Was there you guys had a favorite?
Honestly, didn't even realize it until that San Diego Seattle game.
I like NOLA's jerseys. NOLA's looked very clean. I did like that. Yeah, Miami's kind of a little bit off-putting. Old Glory, the black numbers looked okay. Yeah, I did, and I liked RFC. I actually like the Anthem numbers too, or the Anthem jerseys as well. But either way, looks solid. On again the ESPN Plus broadcast for us here in the U.S. and on TRN members up there nationally or internationally up in Canada. But there you go, our quick tap recap, our first quick tap recap of the 2025 season. But we got to move on. We got to look on here to a week 2 that does include a pretty big bye-mageddon.
Waiver wire breakdown.
All right, we got our first TFR waiver wire breakdown of the 2025 season, and like I mentioned, bye-mageddon, our earliest, I think, bye-mageddon that we've had to start any fantasy MLR year that since we've been doing this. We got Seattle, Old Glory, DC, and New England on bye, so those guys will not be available for you. So a whole bunch. It makes this waiver wire very, very interesting because there's going to be guys that will be available if you have the space that you may be able to sneak onto your lineup there if you're confident with your starters heading into this one. Guys like, Jed Melvin who may be available, things like that, but we'll get into that part. Before I get into the guys we're looking at picking up, let's quickly touch on guys that are droppable, because I think that's the biggest notion and biggest point that I think a lot of people will try to ask here heading into this waiver wire round is seeing the lineups and seeing certain guys out of the lineup, and not knowing necessarily what to do because they know that the potential is there. But obviously to roster a guy on your team with only 5 bench spots on a guy that's not even suiting up for the match day 23 is tough. I'm going to name a couple guys to me, you gotta weather the storm. But guys like Kunatani and like Riekert Hadding, those are guys you're probably holding on
Of
to.
course, Rye.
Not to mention that they're guys that Vandy both owns.
I was like, you
But
trying to tell me something, dude? I'm not
right.
dropping them.
But either way, I would not drop some of those big names. Kind of guys that are on the cusp that we have not seen. Like, Maddie, what are your thoughts on, let's say, a Villamoni Karoy? We saw
I'm
Cooper
keeping
Coates
him.
at the fullback. Are you holding on to these guys that you have optimism on if you can? It's tough because it's a bye-mageddon week, right? Like, what are you supposed to do, right? If you maybe wait until you see the lineups, right? Obviously, you're not going to be able to determine that with Hadding, but maybe Villamoni Karoy enters the NOLA Gold lineup this week, right? And you're happy. But if he's not in the lineup again and you need a streamer, like what do you do?
But like also read the room. If you drop Villamoni Karoy, are people in your league going to pick him up? Like, how well versed are they with Super Rugby? Do they know that his history? Are they just listening to us? Good decision. But are they just listening to us? Like, to me, there are some guys that to us are big names. Like Karoy is a huge name for me, and I think he's going to make a huge impact. But if you're worried, drop him because you kind of know there's a pretty good chance that he's going to be there on Saturday. Come when the waivers are when you can just kind of pick guys up. So
Villamoni Karoy or Ethan Grayson?
Oh, dude, I'm not dropping Grayson.
No, I'm saying Villamoni Karoy to drop him to pick up Ethan Grayson.
Yeah, right now I'm taking Grayson because he's actually playing.
That's those, and you're gonna get that like when we go through these waiver wires, like those are some of the options you're gonna have, right? So we'll have to see here. What about like a Billy Meeks situation where he's coming off the bench? You probably drafted him, took a flyer on him. Like, is that someone that's droppable? All right, Billy Meeks on the drop list. All right, let's.
He didn't look that good, anyways. He played 60 minutes and he did nothing.
That's true. Let's go through our waiver wire picks now. Obviously, we run a fab format here, so Maddie and I will also be giving some fab advice when it comes to these guys.
Mix is gonna kill us.
Yeah, no kidding. But let's start off here with the front row position at guys that are available here. Of course, you're gonna not have guys again with Seattle, Old Glory, DC, and New England on bye. You're not gonna have the likes of Quattrin. You're not gonna have the likes of Vaca. You're not gonna have the likes of DeWalt Kotza. What's a name that, Maddie, you have on this that would be a good streamer for this week?
Boys, we're still going. We talked about it earlier. We're still going. Set piece bonanza against Anthem. Guess who's playing Anthem next week? San Diego. Hugh Roach. He's definitely not picked up in any of your leagues because I know I've got the stats. He's not picked up.
0% owned. 0% owned. He is literally available in every single league. I wonder what he's going to go for. Again, only 3.9 points this past week. But again, he plays the Anthem, and that could get inflated pretty quickly. I have Hugh Roach as well as my waiver wire pick of the week. Another option as well, one that I want to note is Pat O'Toole. I mean, we cannot mention him here. Only 29% owned. He was our front row team of the week player. Obviously, a lot of that inflated because they played the Anthem, but if Pat O'Toole is going to have a reasonable starting position with NOLA Gold, we'll see moving forward. I would even put it at a more of an emphasis. If you have the space and you're the Joe Tofetti owner, I would want Pat O'Toole.
Let's go. I got them both.
You got them both. I would want Pat O'Toole on the bench. If I'm the Joe Tofetti owner, I'm willing to put down, I would say, 5% of my fab to get Pat O'Toole and have that combination for the season. Matt, how much fab are you putting on Hugh Roach? Is he just a streamer option for this week?
Just a streamer.
Just a streamer.
He's just a streamer. He's just a streamer. I wouldn't put, I don't know, 100. I wouldn't put more than like $2, 2% of your fab maybe down on him.
Okay.
But yeah, if you don't get him, not the end of the world. You probably have a front rower to start.
All right. Vandy, taking notes. I know you have DeWalt Kotza.
Right.
You gotta. All right. Second row options now. This is where we get pretty barren. Maddie might have an option here, but I mean, again, outside of a Sam Caird this week, there were not many players.
Yeah, what was up with that? Why was it so low scoring this week?
It was weird.
Isn't that crazy?
It was
Danny,
crazy.
Didn't you think it was low scoring? Like nobody passed 100.
No one passed 100 points in all of our fantasy leagues. Our highest scoring second row player was Mauro Rebisoni, who we talked about earlier again, and he was because he just scored 2 tries. But you can't say that before we even get to the. What if I had him on my list, which I might actually?
Okay, Sam.
All right, I'll go first. Here.
Called the bluff immediately.
Barring but no, it's not a bluff. I'm saying Mauro Rebisoni or Federico Gutierrez. The Miami second row players, I would go with either of them if you're in need of a second row player. If you're on a bye week, this is again two guys that are definitely not necessarily guys that I'm dropping big fab on. I would probably not even put
Zero
anything.
fab.
I'll put
No
zero
fab.
fab on it. But if I
They had a
have
combined 10 meters gained, Ryan.
Yes, I understand that. But you're looking when you look at this, I'm not looking for a second row player that is going to get me 10 points. I'm looking for a second row player that will maybe get me 3 or 4. And if I have a Sam Caird, if I have a Rhino Herbst, if I have any of these guys that are on bye, the reason why I say the Miami second row players is because if you look at the build and the makeup of their lineup, they only had one back row player that was on their bench, and that was Caceres. One of those guys is playing a full 80. I know the other guy that's slotted into the back row, he's usually listed as a front row player, what's his name? Thomas Beckerman, who came in, I believe, at the back row. But it's Gutierrez, it's Rebusone, and then Caceres, who occasionally plays a second row and is also a back row fill there. So what I'm saying is that the likelihood that one of these guys is going to play an 80, lock into that 80 plus minute points, maybe cash in a try against NOLA Gold this weekend. There's an opportunity there. Again, just a streaming option. Wouldn't drop any fab on it. But if you're really struggling to find a second row player, that's one of the guys I would go with.
Fair enough. Vandy, I got one of your boys, Gavin Thornberry, coming back off of the first week bye or whatever the heck you call that.
First week bye.
Nothing like a first week bye. Yeah, need that rest. Yeah, I got him listed. I know they got Frank Lahore, but hey, Gavin Thornberry recently announced as captain. And he's got that high work rate that I did in my pre-draft scouting. He's going to be a guy, and he's got named captain, which means he's got the respect and the skill to be able to represent the team, and the team respects him enough. That tells you a lot of good things. You look at similar things with like Brad Wilkin getting vice captain as well for San Diego, I believe. So something similar there. For whatever reason, I like this Gavin Thornberry pickup. I think it's a good chance. Like, hey, if you need a second row, take a flyer. Like, guys are not going to be going for Gavin Thornberry. I would put like a few bucks on him, maybe 1 or 2% of your fab, just to try to get on it for the first game of the season.
And this guy is a guy that, Maddie, like what I'm getting from is that maybe a guy that you hold on to. Could be a guy that
he is a guy that is a long haul play. He's not a streamer. Like, he's a guy who could potentially be the guy for Utah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on now to the back row position. Again, Gavin Thornberry, just a last note, 0% owned. So if you're out there, you can pick him up. Literally no leagues have him. Back row player now. Back row now that we are going through. I will say, just check out there to see if Brad Wilkin is available on your waiver wire. He's owned in 57% of leagues. I would drop the bank on Brad Wilkin. What are you thinking, Matt? Like maybe 15%?
He's got a mullet and he's a redhead. Yes, drop the bank on him.
Yeah, 15% higher?
Yeah, probably 15%.
Okay, 15%. Look at Brad Wilkin again. 50 only, just above half of leagues have him. So Brad Wilkin is available in a lot of your guys' leagues. Pick that up if he's available. Maddie, why don't you go with the other San Diego guy that's not as wildly owned, 14% only in leagues right now?
Poitevin. Now, he's going to be a very similar guy, like pretty much the same type player. You're going to get a lot of tackles from him. I actually think in some ways Poitevin's a little bit more valuable in my mind. Because
Brad Wilkin.
Yeah, because Poitevin, what he's been doing is you will see him if you watch, he will sit on that wing. That's obviously like their play style, but he'll sit on that wing and play make and create plays for the winger. Like Ryan James, I think 2 tries of his were based off of a Poitevin try assist.
That's true.
Like that's crucial points that you can get that kind of separates the two. So I have Poitevin a little bit higher than Brad Wilkin simply on that fact.
So how much are you dropping on Poitevin then? If you're dropping 15% on Wilkin.
Yeah, maybe I'll move it around like 10% on Wilkin, 15% on Poitevin.
Wow. All right. So long-term play here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. All right. For mine, just a streaming option and maybe potential for upside. I'm gonna go with the number 8 of San Diego. I think there's a lot of value to be had when you have the 8 man of a team that plays with the offense that San Diego plays with, and that's Jimmy Hokafanu. Obviously, it was surprising to see him as the starting 8. They're a team with Tavita Taimalo, and other back row players there. But if he's a guy that's going to continue to start at 8, possibly, I mean, wait until you see the line again. I'm not dropping any fab on it. This is again a situation where if Poitevin's taken, if Wilkins taken, and you have any of the New England Free Jacks back row players, any of the Seawolves guys or Old Glory DC, like take a flyer on Hokafanu, see if he comes through on the waivers with no money, and then wait for that lineup to come through. If Hokafanu is starting at 8 again this week, you have a high upside guy against the Anthem team that is a streamer that could turn into a guy that's a long-term play if he continues to start at that position. We'll see how he goes from there. Again, it's a guy that would have scored outside of a yellow card, would have got you upwards towards the 10-point mark. So I think there's just a nice little upside play there if you'd like to have a potential back row streamer. All right, move to the scrum half position. I will go with Tomas Kubeli. I think it's really easy to be said there. 29% owned in the leagues. He scored 10 fantasy points, looks good for Miami. He's a guy that should be owned. I'd be willing to drop, 10% if you're in need of a 9, 5 to 10% on him. If let's say I'm a Carlo Denician owner, or if I maybe punted the 9 position and he's available. Cabelli is a guy that you could probably start for season long because Damian Morley is not going to be a guy that even comes close to superseding what Cabelli can do. And I think that got emphasized in that matchup against Old Glory DC when they faltered towards the tail end of that match there.
Yeah. If you're a Carlo Denician owner, just pick up Carl Keane, probably for no fab at all. I think he's 0% rostered, gets 12.3 points. A lot of that from the try.
I think he's 43% rostered now.
43. Okay, sure. 43, whatever. Still under 50. That's what we talked about. I think he outplayed Carlo Denician. So I think Carl Keane's just going to continue to be starting there. So yeah, Carl Keane, good play.
Carl Keane. All right. We'll get to see him. And then now moving on to the center position, Matt, you talked about this guy. You're high. Oh, wait. Sorry, not center. Fly half position. Go to the fly half position. You talked about this guy earlier on who you thought should have started for Seattle. 14% owned, Eddie Fouché.
Eddie Fouché, yes, he's on bye next week. But if you're not in need or not desperate for a 10 and you have the space, I think Fouché is going to be the guy moving forward after this bye. And I think he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the starter. He looked really good when he came on. Seattle obviously looked better when he came on. I think he'll be a good long-term steal.
Dorian Jones is who I have. I think the fly half that's going to start for NOLA Gold is going to have value. 29% owned, only 6.9 fantasy points, but I guess always a potential there if you're the kicker that is going to be kicking those points for a high-powered offense. Always the potential for you to be solid there. That's my pick for the week. I will say check out there if Lincoln McClutchy is out there available. He's only 57% owned, so available in just under half of leagues. McClutchy would be my top pickup. Would you pick McClutchy over Fouché, Matt, if he was available?
Yeah, I mean, with the way McClutchy played, but I do think Fouché has a little bit more upside than him, so I would rather take the shot on Fouché if I have the ability to.
Okay.
But McClutchy's clutch with the side of fries.
That's true. All right, moving on to the center.
Vandy got it. Vandy got it.
Moving on to the center position, I will say, look, if Stephen Hughes is available, if you have the space, I think Stephen Hughes is going to be part of that back line we're talking about. That Old Glory DC could be sneaky good, 10.3 fantasy points. On the weekend, 0% owned. But again, because he's on bye, it might be tough to roster a guy that's not going to be playing this week. But Maddie, you have a guy that is literally 0% owned and looked like what you thought was one of the better centers in this league.
He was going to be like 10% owned if I kept him, but I had to drop him because of the lineups were crazy and the fantasy chaos. But yeah, he's being heavily utilized by LARC. He's heavily involved. He even got that intercept kind of run, which helped him out on the fantasy side. So that's awesome. But yeah, the other thing that is a big thing for me is that he's not really impacted on the decisions for Meeks. Like he's at 13 and I think he's going to be there whether Meeks is at 12 or not. So yeah, I like that part about it. Matthias Jensen obviously played well, 15.5 fantasy points. And yeah,
Nice. All right. Let's my pick is his line mate, Nick Chan. I think there's just
Interesting.
a lot they're very, very high on Nick Chan is what I've heard. Again, I think
I think
there's
they're
always the
high on
risk
the
that
center pairing combo in general, like both of them
yeah,
being the center pairing combo. I think that's why Billy Meeks isn't there.
yeah.
Because
So
those
I
guys,
mean,
right?
yeah,
Those guys played in the shoot shield together in Australia, and they won
yeah.
the shoot shield for years.
There you go. So, I mean, 7.5 fantasy points, 29% owned. Nick Chan is a good one. I will say also, check out if Eric Storty is available. He
He
looks
was
pretty
sick. He
solid
looked
for
good.
Anthem. He is 57% owned, but again, the number one draft pick, good athletic player. I will say now moving on to the back three position, this is a guy that's right now center eligible, but the way that San Diego is going to use him, you're going to be picking him up as a back three player. You'll probably lose that center eligibility in about a couple weeks here, but Ethan Grayson, only 29% owned, 12.1 fantasy points. Looked good with San Diego. Again, faces the Anthem this week. You'll be able to slot him at that center position or the back flex position this week. But I think Ethan Grayson is a guy that you pick up. I would put down 15% at least on Ethan Grayson because it's a guy that you can have for the long term and obviously has a lot of pedigree and someone that they're high on.
I like that. Very similar for me, Thomas Aoaki. Yeah, I'm surprised that he's not rostered more.
43%.
Yeah, that's 43. You said
43% owned.
okay. Yeah, so I mean, like he wasn't drafted very high up, at least in our drafts, and the drafts that I saw.
But still available in more than half of leagues,
Yeah, still
which is
available in
crazy.
more than half the leagues. And you saw the work that he did yesterday. Like Ryan James might have scored a lot of points, but Thomas Aoaki played really well.
The one guy I
And
will
he's,
say,
by the way, he's against the Anthem this weekend. And Anthem, I think the back three are going to get more opportunities for San Diego than what NOLA back three did versus the
what's crazy to me is that out of that back three, that Ryan James is the one that's owned the most out of all three of them.
That's
Like
kind
that
of
surprised me when I saw that. Ryan James was the highest scoring fantasy player out of the three last season, but from a name value was very surprising. I will say, if you have the space, check out if Paula Bellicana is open and available. I know he's a guy Matthew doesn't like to talk about much, but 43% owned, 9.4 fantasy points.
You have to get to the bye next week.
Got to get through the bye next week. Lastly, here we'll just quickly rip it. San Diego Legion, right, for defensive set piece. They're playing the Anthem, 29% owned. They're largely available. I will say I'll add in the mixture. NOLA Gold, I think, is a good one to add as well. If San Diego gets picked up, put that second bid on NOLA, also only 29% owned. They take on Miami this week, and wasn't that impressed with Miami's set piece, so that might be an option as well. All right, cool. Some waiver wire options there for you to get through this bye-mageddon. And again, three teams on bye, but plenty of options to choose from to help you get through it. Let's talk about those games that are coming up this weekend.
Let's go.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, it's time for the TFR Rucking Rundown. Week 2 Rucking Rundown. Again, like what we mentioned, on bye, the New England Free Jacks, Ogilvy DC, and the Seattle Seawolves. Boys, we were mediocre when it came to our picks this past week. Vandy and myself, 3-2. Maddie, 2-3.
All
so we'll see how that pans out this upcoming weekend. The first match, we have our first Friday matchup of the year with a big heater between Anthem Rugby Carolina and the San Diego Legion.
Put your money where your mouth is, Ryan. This is where you get a win.
No,
Yeah.
see, I am not.
They got to do it here.
Anthem are at home against San Diego, Friday, 7:30 Eastern time. I think, well, I'll let you guys go first. You think this is going to be a rout?
You
Easy.
would. Yeah, there's not much to say here.
Playing all your San Diego guys?
That's like interesting stories here. Who starts at 10 for Anthem? And that's about it. That's all I want to know. And when's Connor Mooneyham back? I want to see him back playing rugby. So yeah, we'll see. I think this is going to be San Diego a bit of a hiding for Anthem.
All right. Vandy, I can only assume who you're going to go with.
Okay. What we should do is every Anthem game, we all say the other team, but we have to make Ryan choose his 3 right now.
No, that's silly. That's silly. Well, I think
I'm never going to say the Anthem.
Hey, team. Well, I think teams
the
that
Anthem could play themselves and they would tie.
I think there will be. A teaser ahead to the season. There will be games where I pick the Anthem. There will be games. There are certain teams that I think
Utah.
First time they play
Just say
Utah.
it. Just say Utah.
I'm not going to say anything.
Nah,
But all right, Vandy's going San Diego. I'm going San Diego as well in this one. So I think we're sweep off the board. This is not the one that I'm going to choose for them to get one of their 3 games in. I have a little bit more common sense than that.
Wow.
Either way, all San Diego on this one. Chicago taking on Utah at home on our Sunday matchup. No Saturday games this weekend, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We get to see Vandy's boys for the first time. Utah.
I'm excited.
This one's going to be a cold one. This one is going. Well, it's funny. If there's one team to play in a cold weather match to start off their season, it's Utah. I don't know if you saw any of their social media videos, but they were like training in the mountains. It looked like they went on some like retreat where they were like they had backpacks on
Ayahuasca.
and they were like going.
They went with Tony Ferguson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm excited for this one. This is going to be an awesome one. I mean, Chicago looked good, but Utah is this whole brand new team that I am itching to try to figure. It's similar to like LA, right? Like I'm wanting to know what this team's all about. Are they better? Are they worse? I don't know how you can get worse. Are they the same? Like I'm excited to see what this team is. I'm really looking at a couple positions, 3 positions. Liam Coltman, 1, the back row room, and then the center room. Those are the 3 kind of areas that I really am interested in seeing how they perform. With all that being said, though, I am going to go Chicago here.
All right. Does it worry you at all, at least when it comes to fantasy assets in this one? It's going to be 34 degrees around at kickoff time. For you Canadians out there, it'll probably be what, 2 or 3 degrees out there.
That's t-shirt weather, bud.
Is it?
And yeah,
the only thing that
gusts around 10 miles an hour.
Okay, great. So Joel Hodgson, maybe we don't want to. Well, 10 miles per hour isn't that much, but like Joel Hodgson, maybe we don't like. Maybe the kickers, maybe Tim Swiel is a guy you just want to. Hey, don't want to start him because he would struggle to kick in regular weather, and hardly kicked. So yeah, maybe, but I think cold isn't the issue. At like 2 degrees Celsius isn't too bad. But rain and snow, that would be a problem. Wet and cold, not great. Just cold. I think it'll be okay for fantasy.
All right, Vandy, who you got in this one?
No, you go first.
All right, I'm going Chicago in this one.
You gutless.
I'm going Chicago in this one. It will be interesting. I would not be shocked.
You already know.
All right. Utah for Vandy. All right. Utah for Vandy. I wouldn't be shocked. To be honest, I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if Utah came through. I think that's the scariest part about this Utah team is that I have no idea what to expect with this team. No idea. No idea. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Next game on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. The Miami Sharks taking on the NOLA Gold. Miami is at home. We'll see. I mean, obviously, NOLA, I think we'll learn a little bit more about this NOLA team because they faced an Anthem team that was pretty weak. Miami's obviously, I think, a little bit better than Anthem, and they look to be a little bit better than Anthem in their game against Old Glory DC. But again, I still think this is a team that NOLA could probably take advantage of here, seeing how they played. I'm going to go NOLA in this one, but you guys tell me what you guys think of this one.
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
I'm going
NOLA. Yeah, I'm gonna go NOLA as well. Yeah, NOLA just quality side. Until they prove me that they stink again, I will keep
Dead feet out. Big game.
How much of a level are you confident in just kind of set and forget for your NOLA players in this one?
I mean, pretty confident. Like Tamaki, I'll start for sure. Duplessis, I would start for
Xavier,
sure.
Mignon,
Yeah.
yes. Dead feet
Any hesitancy with your Miami guys? Like Martin Elias.
I don't think this changes anything. Like, I think this is the same. Like, I would still start guys as I would start guys. This isn't like Anthem playing or anything like that where you need to make any changes.
Okay. Last matchup of the week, RFC Los Angeles taking on the Houston Sabercats at home, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. This one should be fun. I think again, another battle tested.
Fun for one side.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how Houston kind of bounces back from this. I do RFC LA again. I think a game against the New England Free Jacks that they definitely could have won. If they bring up that same performance, they could definitely win this one as well. But we'll see how kind of Houston comes back and see how they bounce back. But I'm again playing all my assets in this one. I'm a little bit worried though about my Houston back players. I don't know outside of Davy Kutzer. I'm trying to find other options.
Same thing until you see Tuala Tassi back in the lineup. Just doesn't even matter. who's in that back line. There's only like three guys that maybe you'll start. AJ Alatimu, Tuala Tasi, and Davy Kutzer. Yeah, I'm going to RFCLA for this one. I just think you watch the way that Houston played last week, or just the past weekend, and it is just nothing like the Houston that we've seen before in the past season. It's sloppy, it's chaotic, just doesn't make sense. Defensively, they're not organized. I think RFCLA watches that and knows exactly how to exploit it.
I'm going LA as well in this one. I went against LA last week. It paid off for me, but as the in-house, I guess, new LA fan, this is the first time I'll be picking LA, and we'll see how that goes. Vandy, who are you going here? Maddie and I have both been straight across the board, equal on picks. You have been the lone alternate
Vandy,
pick
go
with Utah.
again. Do it.
Being a fan, you can't dive in and dive out, Ryan. One day
Let's go.
At the end of the day, I'm a credible sports broadcaster, and I need to make picks that I go without my heart.
Credible sports broadcaster, bandwagoner.
Yes,
that's true. You put it right there. There you go. There you go. They haven't won anything yet until I became a fan.
Okay. Can I base this off some? I'll go one or the other. If
go with your heart. I know what you want to
plays LA, yes. No semi. Houston, yes.
Okay, I'll allow that. Will you allow that?
What about a full? What about a full? What happens if you got a full?
They're both full. We got semi and AJ at 10 and Coates are at 15.
Oh, we're gonna need to bust out the whole scenario.
Give me Houston.
In that scenario, if AJ's at 10 and Coates at 15, Houston.
You want Houston? Okay.
All right.
So
but if Semi's playing and AJ's not at 10, yeah, I'm going LA.
Okay.
I think my joke went over your head. That's right. The viewers got it.
All right.
Yeah, I was too busy talking.
All right. So we got a hypothetical LA or Houston for Vandy, and then we're the same for all of us here. We'll see how this goes. I think it should be an interesting week 2 to kick it off. All right. Here we go. Last segment of the show. One of our favorite segments.
Not yours. You stink at this one.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, we got the
you're
TFR.
Good at this one. You're good at this one, Vandy.
We got the TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp betting made easy. If you want to get in on the rugby betting action, particularly the Major League Rugby betting action, we got some nice first-time user deals down below in the description that takes you to a page that curates all the available sports books that are available in your area. You can click on that, get some free bets, get betting in on Major League Rugby. I think there's some things to take advantage of here when it comes to
for those free bets, Ryan. I was on a heater last week. I was good. I mean, maybe not the Hurricanes pick. I got the Chiefs pick, I think. Moana Pacifica and the Fijian Drua picks. I crushed.
Yeah, you did get those. But before we get into those other leagues that are going around, I want to open up with first our results. So Vandy decides that he's money bags Vandy and decides to just drop $20 on just the pick that he picked, and that was the plus the 7.5 for Rugby LA. I will say, Vandy, I was clenching for the last 5 minutes. Like New England, like I was like, holy! I don't know what Vegas knows. But for some reason, they know sometimes how to pick these lines, no matter how good these teams are. And I was hoping for that 0.5 hits.
The more you gamble, the more you realize all these sports are all in bed with these casinos.
It's crazy. I will say so you obviously took advantage of that. That was my one winning bet. The 17.5 underdogs for Anthem quickly went under the wayside. I thought I was good for about the first 10 minutes when they scored the game tying try, and then it didn't pan out like that. And then I went with the underdog pick of LA winning the match, which actually had pretty good odds, plus 300 to get that, which they were close, and that would have been a big time play there. Nonetheless, Vandy is in the lead for TFR.
Right?
What?
Vandy just goes all in, just one that he feels real good about. And just says,
I was thinking about that. But
you keep getting sucked in by the parlays.
I didn't parlay, though. It wasn't parlay. No
you
parlays.
Get sucked in by the multiple bets.
Yes.
Trying to hedge it.
My pick of the week, and we both said this, our picks of the week were the Rugby LA 7.5 underdogs. I didn't want to keep it boring and have us both do the same picks. That's not fun. So I wanted to.
Can I tell you who my MLR pick of the weeks are?
Okay, well,
the lines aren't even out, but I'll tell you.
So that's my next point, is that the lines have been coming out towards the tail end of the week. Probably will get them Thursday around. I will say my first opening question for you guys, though, about this as you get into this, Maddie, it will be, what do you think the line for San Diego, Carolina
Yeah,
is
so
going to be?
San Diego, Carolina, that's going to be 21 and a half. Easy. Don't touch it. Like, don't touch it yet. I don't think it's worth going with that San Diego bet. NOLA, Miami, that one's going to be, I think, like a 12 and a half spread. I would.
You're doing this off hypothetical spreads, though. I don't know.
Yeah, but whatever. The 12
Like,
and a
who
half
do you
spread.
think? So Nola's favored in that one.
NOLA's favored by 12.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
But I don't think they cover. I think Miami covers that spread. Utah versus Chicago. I think Chicago's going to be favored by 6.5. All right. Going to be favored by 6.5. I think Utah covers. If it's within a try, if it's within a try, Utah covers.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
If it's past it, if it's bigger than a try, Utah definitely covers.
All right. Well, the interesting one is going to be RFC LA and Houston. You think LA is going to be favored in that one?
No, Houston's going to be favored. Houston's going to be
favored. So then we smash LA again
by 10, and you smash LA for the underdog.
All right. There you go. So yeah, usually lines come out around Thursday. Use Matthew's hypothetical lines for what you will. They could be not even close.
Because nobody gets these lines for MLR. Anyways, that's fine. All right. We'll get you guys up to date once they come.
Yeah, the TFR Betting Challenge picks will come out before the games start here this week. Vandy, I'm sure, will drop another $50 on LA with the upset there, and I might just have to follow suit with him so that he does not build a more than $20 lead over me. All right, let's break down these final matches here. If you're looking to bet rugby outside of the world of MLR, there are odds that are up. We'll start with the Six Nations. We got games on Saturday and Sunday. Maddie, starting on Saturday, we got Wales versus Ireland. What do you think the line is here?
The line's what, 19 and a half? Go Ireland.
23 and a half.
Yeah, makes sense. Ireland. Go Ireland.
Okay, still Ireland. All right. England, Scotland. What do you think the line is there?
10.
England is favored by 8.5.
Yeah, fair enough. Go England.
All right. And then Italy and France. What do you think the line is there?
What, France? What was the Wales Ireland one?
Wales, Ireland was 23.5.
Yes, this one's what, 19?
17 and a half.
Yeah, I'm on fire. What are you saying? My lines aren't going to be good? I'm within 3 of every one. And I don't know why you're like,
no, it said no. MLR is weird. Deal? I don't know. If you can come back, we'll go back to watching this podcast and we'll release it and we'll see how close you were. Because if
19 and a half. No, you said 17 and a half. Yeah, France.
All right. So
I kind of want to take the Italy to cover, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. Let's quickly move on over to Super Rugby here. This line is actually shocking. It opens up with the Friday matchup. Chiefs Crusaders. What do you think the line is here, Maddie?
Chiefs favored by 3.5.
Wow. Chiefs are favored by 7.5.
Oh, that's messed up. Crusaders cover.
Okay, Crusaders covers. The Reds taking on Moana Pacifica.
Reds favored by 10.
Reds favored by 13.5.
Yep. Yeah, I'd take Moana Pacifica.
Okay, so underdogs to start off here with Super Rugby. We got Hurricanes, Fiji, and Drua.
Hurricanes are favored by 19.5.
17.5. Maddie, you're pretty good at this.
Yeah, I know. And Hurricanes cover. No, I'm kidding. I'm actually taking Drua to cover that. 19.5 is a lot of points.
Hurricanes jersey.
They're going to win still. Just Drua's going to cover it.
Okay.
Drua's sick.
Highlanders, Blues.
Yeah, Blues, what, by 8?
11.5.
Yeah, see, still within 3. I'm killing it. Yeah, Blues. 11.5. No, it's Blues.
Okay. And then Brumbies, Western Force.
Yeah, well, Brumbies favored by gotta be at least what, 13?
14.5. Maddie here. Damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty
and
good.
We take that. But my favorite ones out of those ones are the Crusaders one. Probably Moana Pacifica versus the Reds. And the Six Nations, I don't know. I feel like you have to parlay to get anything, like just the favorites. There's too many favorites.
Is there any value in taking the Crusaders to outright win to almost triple your money?
Yeah, I think you could.
plus 190.
Yeah, if you want to parlay, hey, Ireland, England, France, just parlay them all. They'll all win.
All right. We'll win. All righty. Well, there is your TFR betting challenge presented by Betstamp. Van, did you learn some stuff? You're going to continue to be on a heater here?
I was just looking at the odds on my computer, actually. You don't worry about what I do. You worry about what you do.
Well, see, I'm asking you the questions so that I can stop losing because it hasn't looked great since the beginning. But either way, if you're taking tabs, Vandy's up $16. I am down $5. We'll see if that changes next week. All right. Anything else for the people as we wrap up this episode 142?
Would I smack you in the summer by 30?
We changed the rules here a little bit in this one with net thing, but yes, you did. I'm still gonna say it. I got my futures bet still locked in for top 14. We're rooting for Toulon. All right, we got it going.
Winner.
All right. Anything else for the people, boys?
Nah, boys. Just good luck round 2. I told you it's all downhill from the draft.
All right. Well, here we go. For Matt Yee, for Devin, Vandy, Vanderpool. Good luck, like Matty said, for an exciting round 2 of matches. Fantasy MLR, and everything else in between. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
Last place is temporary unless you suck.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.